Welcome to Monster Monday, the Dragon series. Today we're going to start off with a look back and a little bit of a comparison so that we know our history when it comes to dragons. Let's delve in. Well, in the original first edition AD&D Monster Manual, there are a whopping 5 pages dedicated to dragons. Soak that up for a second. The name of the game is Dungeons and Dragons. There are 5 pages. But I think what's more interesting is to kind of look at the origins of the dragon in first edition and compare them to fifth. What is the same and what is definitely different? To start off with, in first edition AD&D, there were actually 8 categories based on age for dragons. So they had very young, young, subadult, young adult, adult, old, very old, and ancient. But maybe more importantly than just having 8 categories was how it affected the strength or power of the dragon. And the first edition Monster Manual indicated that for each one of these age categories, there was a specific hit point per die. So as an example, if you look at the Black Dragon from first edition, the Black Dragon would have 6 to 8 hit dice. So let's say I'm a DM and I just want to go all out, full 8 hit dice. What that means is a very young Black Dragon, between 1 and 5 years old, would have 1 hit point per hit die. So that means 8 hit points total, which even for like a little infant baby dragon, that's not a lot. That's like orc level hit points. Now, let's go to the far end, right? Suppose that you have an ancient black dragon. That means that this is a dragon that is more than 400 years old. That would have 8 hit points per die. So an ancient black dragon, at most, would have 8 hit dice with 8 hit points per die. That means 64 hit points, which is not a lot. Even for first edition, that was not a lot. So I think this kind of age category and relative hit points kind of component was a huge departure from what we see nowadays, and even in 4th and 3rd edition D&D. Huge, huge difference. Now, of those 5 pages dedicated to dragons, which includes all of the chromatic and all of the metallic dragons, you find that almost 1 full page is about encountering dragons, sleeping dragons, attacking dragons, subduing dragons, the value of a dragon. So I found it kind of interesting, and it's definitely something that's very different in thinking process and approach from later editions. So I wanted to kind of share this with you a little bit, right? So bearing in mind that in first edition, they had the 10 species, right? The 5 chromatic and the 5 metallic dragons. That is the same now as it's always been. That's been something that has been consistent throughout editions. Now, I will say for some of you older school gamers, you may know well that there were, different editions that had expansions and that evolved other species or subspecies of dragons. I remember like a Mercury dragon. There were a lot of different kind of little subspecies or offshoots or new dragon types. But the core idea was that chromatic dragons were evil, metallic dragons were good, and there were 5 and 5. There was a balance. But I think what's really interesting in first edition is the focus on the idea of subduing a dragon, because it's not something that is found or really fleshed out or explored in later editions. So I wanted to kind of share this. So the genesis of this is that if a party wanted to try to subdue a dragon, they had to make their intent known to the DM prior to initiating the attack. There were specific mechanics involved that had to be done. There was percentile dice rolls that were done, and then the amount of people attacking to subdue and flanking, all of these kind of components were in place. And I feel like part of that came from the origins of D&D, which is wargaming. And those early writers and game designers enjoyed mechanics. They enjoyed strategy and tactics being used. And there's definitely a reward here, because if you were able to subdue a dragon, this next section talks about the value of a subdued dragon. Larger towns and cities will usually have a market for dragons. That is mind-blowing to me, because for as long as I've been playing, I've never had a DM describe a city as having a dragon market. Like, that's kind of crazy to me. But here it is. In print, they intended for that to be a thing that could happen. If a dragon is sold, it usually goes out of the game, although the referee may wish to assign it to someone of his special non-player characters whom he runs for encounter in the town or city. The selling price of a subdued dragon ranges from 100 to 800 gold pieces per hit point. The price is subject to adjustment by the referee. Offers are typically determined by rolling a 8-sided die. Subdued dragons can be ridden. So there's your payoff, right? The idea of not just seeing a dragon as a foe to be killed, but the idea of subduing it and then later using it in some fashion, right? Now, whether these dragons would be cooperative or not, or how that would play out, that's another story. But the idea that a party could actually capture, subdue a dragon and sell it, or try to train it somehow, or maybe even using the more expanded age categories, they could capture a baby dragon kind of, and train it and teach it and kind of make it one of their allies, or even just a non-thinking mount, just for the idea that they could fly around on dragons. That's a huge thing. They spent one of their 5 pages focusing on discussing all of those elements. And then the other pages kind of give you very basic stat blocks and a couple paragraphs of description. And the description really isn't even that detailed or visually oriented. The paragraphs kind of describe the basics for each of these dragons, like where they live, what they prefer, what their kind of personality or inclination is, and their attacks. That's kind of it. So it's very textbook instead of narrative oriented. By contrast, in 5th edition, you have a crazy amount of pages. In the Dragons section, there's like 34 pages of information about dragons in 5th edition. The big difference here with 5th edition and even earlier editions is that they eliminated the variety of age categories. So instead of there being 8 like there were in 1st edition, there are 4 age categories: Wormling, Young, Adult, and Ancient. And with each of these age categories, you have a size component. So a Wormling is medium-sized. A Young dragon is large. An Adult dragon is huge. An Ancient dragon is gargantuan. And I do know that in other editions, like 3 and 3.5, and maybe even 4th, they had different sizes. There was a broader range of sizes, and I think one of those was even Colossal, which was bigger than Gargantuan, or maybe 5th edition Gargantuan replaced it. But no matter. The point is that the age and size are linked to the category, not hit points. But each one, for each dragon, you have the stat blocks for each of the 4 categories. So it's not just like a math equation where it's like this age times this number of hit dice equals that hit points. It's much more than that. In 5th edition, each dragon type is fleshed out for its age, not just by size, but other abilities as well, which I think actually makes it make a lot more sense, right? The dragon type and age comes with other benefits other than just hit points. There's more to it than that. The same consistency is revealed between chromatic dragons and metallic. So the chromatic dragons are still representative of the evil dragons. The metallic dragons represent good dragons. But I feel like other than that basic description, the alignment is much less important. And that is not new to or specific just to dragons. It's something that I explored in my alignment video. The difference between how important alignment was in the game in first edition is changed and evolved and been reduced, for better or worse, in later editions. So in this series, I am going to be looking at each one of the dragons. And every time I look at one of these dragons, I'm going to discuss some of the differences and similarities, but I'm also going to share with you how to use them in encounters and adventures and even whole campaign arcs. Dragons are a huge part of the game, and as such, there has been, over the editions, a lot of additional source books and materials related to dragons, dragon lore, and even offshoots and archetypes and subtypes, subspecies of dragons. This will not be an exhaustive encyclopedia because there are plenty of videos out there already on the topic of dragons. But I do hope to add something to the discussion. And of course, as always, I hope you benefit from it and will share in the comments below your insights into dragons. So I look forward to seeing you on the next episode, and we'll be going through the dragons all summer long.